Good afternoon, Chiefs fans. This is Darren Smith along with Steve Walls, and we are here bringing you the Chiefs pregame cheat sheet. We are live from inside the press box here at Arrowhead Stadium, where the Chiefs will be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals in an AFC Championship game. Steve, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing today? I know you're ready. I know you're ready for action. So, give me your thoughts on today's game.
First off, look, it's the AFC Championship game. I originally thought that last week should have been the AFC Championship game, like everyone else. But it's sunny. It's almost 50 degrees in the sun, 52 degrees in the sun. Actually, those 2 degrees make a lot of difference. But it's going to be a lot of Chiefs fans rocking the house tonight.
This is, of course, the biggest game of the year next to the Super Bowl, of course. So with this game, and if the Chiefs can win, they will advance to their third consecutive Super Bowl appearance, this time in SoFi Stadium. Steve, of course, we got a chance to be at SoFi earlier this year, well, late last month, when the Chiefs took on the Los Angeles Chargers. Your initial thoughts on that stadium?
First of all, it's a stadium within a stadium, if that makes sense. But SoFi is one of those places that it's in LA. I mean, it's in Hollywood. Hollywood lights. The lights are that much brighter in Los Angeles. And not only that, but if the Chiefs make it out of this game, they'll be facing a California team, whether it's San Francisco or the LA Rams.
Look, we want to thank everyone for tuning in. I know you're watching us on Facebook Live. I want to give a shout out to the Busy Bitten and KC, where you at. I want to thank you all for always supporting the show, for what Steve and I do. But Steve, look, let's get right down into the brass tacks. Got a 12-7 Cincinnati Bengals team taking on the 14-5 Chiefs team. Let's understand something. The last time these two teams played was January 2nd. The Chiefs had a 14-point lead, not once, not twice, but 3 times throughout that ball game. Still found a way to lose by only scoring 3 points in the second half. The Bengals won that game 34-31. It was the only loss that the Chiefs suffered over the last 12 weeks. What do the Chiefs need to do to bounce back second time around to beat this team?
And you said it best. The Chiefs found a way to lose. It wasn't that the Bengals went out there and actually beat up on the Chiefs. You got
Right.
to remember, and folks have to remember that. Look, Travis Kelce was fresh from COVID. Um, and also you had Tyreek Hill, fresh from COVID, Chris Jones as well. So it was Travis's first game back. So you didn't get I don't think you got a full strength Kansas City Chiefs. Now look, we're not in the excuse making business, but we will tell it like it is. And I think these Bengals fans, they're putting Joe Burrow up on his pedestal to where we understand he's a young QB, right? But the fact that it being that he hasn't actually played a Chiefs team at full strength, and I think today he'll see that there's a big difference between the last time that they played and today's game.
A big difference that we'll see in today's game that we didn't see last week, Steve. Um, Safety Tyrann Mathieu. He went out on the first drive last week against the Buffalo Bills, where he suffered a concussion. It was announced that he will play. He will start in today's game for the Chiefs. Now he played in the first game against the Bengals, but what will his addition in today's game mean for the Chiefs with him having him in the lineup? Hopefully for them throughout the game.
Look, and talking to Jerry Sneed earlier this week on a Chiefs Zoom, he said it best. He said, "Look, Tyrann Mathieu tells us each and every play where we're supposed to be, and exactly for us to understand what's coming." So I think Tyrann is. I had this conversation yesterday. Someone asked me, will the Chiefs trade, or not re-sign Tyrann Mathieu next year? And my answer was a simple fact of yes, they will keep Tyrann Mathieu for next year. They will re-sign him, and I think because he's that leader on the team. He's the guy that's in the backfield. That's the Geppetto, so to speak, making sure that all these young guys know exactly where to be. And he's a veteran. And I think we got a chance to see last week what this defense would be like without Tyrann Mathieu.
No, that's a real good point, Steve. And also, if the Chiefs are able to advance and even win the Super Bowl, it is real hard. I mean, you start to think, and people talk about that, but you start to think about a team such as the Chicago Bulls where they break a team up too early instead of too late. Where you want to get beat on the field before you start dismantling the team. So if that's something that he could perhaps have in his favor. Look, we're about 22 minutes away from kickoff here at Arrowhead Stadium. Steve, when we look at the playoffs, Cincinnati's method in getting here, they got past. They beat the Las Vegas Raiders 23-16 in the first round. They held that game. They played that game in Cincinnati. The next game, they went out and they beat even after suffering 9 quarterback sacks to Joe Burrow. They beat the number 1 seed in the Tennessee Titans 19-16. Again, they've shown that they can beat Kansas City. They even went out on road show. They beat the top seeded team in the division. What do you think that the Cincinnati Bengals need to do in today's game to upset Kansas City and walk out of here with the trip to the Super Bowl?
You're going to have to score between 35 and 40 points if you want to beat the Chiefs team. One thing that I just
34.
and here's the thing. You just said 23 in the first game, 19 points in the second game. They won without scoring 30 points. That's not going to happen here in Arrowhead. You have to play in a Chiefs team that we saw in 13 seconds. They were able to get into field goal range. They were able to score. And so I think that you have to understand, and we heard Joe Burrow say it earlier this week on the Bengals Zoom. He's like, hey, I understand that I need to go out there and I need to score. We got to score quickly, and every time we touch the ball. Now, I saw a post from Lenny the Cool here on our feed. It said Joe Burrow is is 1 year younger than Patrick Mahomes. Yes, Lenny, we understand that, and that's one of the reasons that we also understand that it's going to be tough for Joe to come in here and command the offense inside of Arrowhead Stadium for an AFC Championship game.
When you look at this and we'll jump right into this as it relates to Joe Burrow. There's been a lot of conversation regarding comments that he made that he's played in loud. And I don't know if he's necessarily played in louder stadiums than Arrowhead, but that he's played in loud stadiums in his young career, whether it's the SEC, places like that. Of course, he's played 100,000 capacity stadiums, but none that may have been configured like the Chiefs Arrowhead Stadium is. Now, let me ask you this. When you look at that and when you look at his comments, do you think, I mean, he doesn't really know what he's talking himself or walking into when he comes in the Arrowhead today?
Yeah, you can say that he had a point. You can say that that sound, I mean, doesn't affect him, right? It very much so. He's the quarterback. He's commanding the ship. But when you think about the other players, as far as the offensive line, the receivers that are going to have to hear his different cadences and things like that, that's definitely something that poses a threat. We've seen over the years, late '90s, early 2000s, where this crowd is tough. Arrowhead is a very tough place to play. Not only that, before an AFC Championship game, college football is not the NFL. College football is not the AFC Championship game, getting ready to go into the biggest game, possibly the biggest game of your career. So I think the noise is much different when you look at all of the aspects that are surrounding it.
Also believe Arrowhead, they with those comments in mind, they're going to show him what 142.2 sounds like later on today when every time he steps underneath center. Now we talk about the connection though. That connection that Joe Burrow has with Jamar Chase is on par with what Travis Kelsey has with Patrick Mahomes, and to an extent Tyreek. We'll talk about that and their relationship and how they've been successful this season.
They know each other. They know each other in and out. We've seen it. I mean, we saw it at LSU. We saw it earlier this season, and we saw it, of course, the last game. But when you look at, and I'm just going off of what my eye test tells me when I watched the last game, Traverse Ward was there on each one of those, right? And I say that to say this: we saw Kobe when he scored 81 points, right? In New York, he scored 81, and you got to remember how many times did Kobe score 81 after that? So I say that to say Jamar Chase had 260 some odd yards, and how many times has he had 260 some odd yards? Anybody in the NFL. So that's tough to do. You're not going to come out here, and I can't say he's going to come out here and do that again, especially on a Chiefs defense who, once they see an opposing offense, they're able to kind of figure out what you want to do. It's nothing that they haven't seen. So I think it's going to be a totally different ball game when it comes to Jamar Chase and defending that wide receiving core.
Kansas City this postseason, they have scored 42 points in both of their respective matchups. 42-21, doubling up over the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. 42-36 overtime win against the Buffalo Bills. I know you mentioned that you felt that it was a classic and probably one of the best games ever. I'm still. I know for prior discussion, I've kind of reverted back to 2018 and the Chiefs and the Rams, and we'll talk about that, of course, if those teams match up in the Super Bowl. But Steve, the path for Kansas City to get here, 4 years in a row, Patrick Mahomes did not have to go on the road in the playoffs to try to get a trip to the Super Bowl. I talk about that because that's something that I was talking about earlier. That I don't think I've ever seen or known that to have happened.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's been able to have the home food advantage, home cooking, all that good stuff, and they're a different animal at home. They really are, and we've said it. This team looks totally different when you have Arrowhead rocking, when you have the music playing, and just that hometown feeling. I think that's been a definite advantage on each one of these years that the Chiefs have made it to the Super Bowl.
Kansas City, of course, Steve. Look, we know a lot about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, but I want to focus. We've talked about throughout the season that number 2 wide receiver, and I'm putting Kelsey in as a tight end. And we always talk about who was going to be that other receiver that would step up on the other side of Tyreek Hill. Well, to this day, we still don't have a set number 2 wide receiver. But what I do like, and you can agree, disagree, is that McCole Hardman, Brian Pringle, DeMarcus, they've all stepped up as a collective unit to where when you look at it in the offseason, you hear rumors of Juju and others want to come play for Kansas City. Kansas City really doesn't have to go in that direction because if you can keep that type of play, you can just pay the receivers that you have, and you don't have to really worry about the offense with the offense as much, and you can focus more so on the defensive side of football. Your thoughts on that?
I agree. agree. First of all, it's kind of like a running back by committee,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? It's a wide receiver by committee, and when you think about that, you don't have to go worry about going out there and paying a top tier guy when you can get the same production from three different guys on any given day, right? So, and I think McCole Hardman's coming into his own. Byron Pringle has made some tough catches. And Demarcus Robinson, he's still there, and he's still a part of that group. These guys go out there and battle each and every week. And you're going to get a different look from each one of these guys. McCall is more of a speedster. Demarcus Robinson is a bigger, taller guy, and he's fast as well. And then you have Byron Pringle, who's more of a physical guy that can catch balls over the middle, similar to that Sammy Watkins. So I think with these guys, I wouldn't definitely go out and search for a person. Maybe if you find somebody in the draft, someone you could bring up and show the personality of this team and the playbook. But I wouldn't go out there and try to get someone in free agency unless you can get them for cheap.
Yeah, Steve, of course, we're about less than 15 minutes away from kickoff. Want to get your quick thoughts on the second game, the NFC Championship game between the Rams and 49ers. Who do you think wins the game, and which one of those teams gets to the Super Bowl?
I think it's the 49ers. I know the Rams defense is crazy. I know, Aaron Donald and Von Miller and those guys, they're able to get after the quarterback. But look, I think, the 49ers is similar to what the Chiefs did when they played the Houston Texans when they were down 24. I think, looking at how the 49ers beat the Rams in Week 18. They were down 17, and now they're kind of riding that high. And you need that from a team. You need that from if you want to go and do what you want to do and be able to get to the Super Bowl, especially at the end of the season. You're able to ride that high and ride the wave all the way there.
Before we get out of here, Steve, your X factor and score for today's game.
I said it last week. It's going to be the other guys, not only Chris Jones and Frank Clark and those guys, but it's going to be the Mike Dana and companies. It's going to be the Travaris Ward, L'Jarius Sneed, the guys that aren't the big money guys. Those are going to be the plays that's needed to happen in order for this Chiefs team to win. And also, don't have any turnovers. Play a great game and no turnovers. I think, the Chiefs be victorious. But I will say this. It's going to be a race to 30. And if the Chiefs happen to get there first, I would say.
Do you think Chiefs fans are confident coming into today's game, or do they,
No, it's warranted. They seen the writing on the wall versus the Bengals in the first game. They were up by 2 scores, at 3 different points in the ball game. So with that being said, I feel like, today it's not going to be a cakewalk, but I feel like it'll be okay.
All right. So, Steve, I am going to go Chiefs. I'm going to go, like you said, race to 30 something. But I'm going to go 42-28. I think the Chiefs, I think they learned a valuable lesson from their loss in Cincinnati that you and I were at. And we saw firsthand how, when Andy takes his foot off the gas, we see bad things happen. I think this time around, I think for the Chiefs, the key for them is once they score, if they can get on top of them and at least maybe hold them to a field goal or third and out. I think once the Chiefs get on top, I think they stay on top and they look to add on scores as much, build as much space between them and the Bengals as possible. Look, they know what's at stake. They know that. It means more to the Chiefs to win the Lamar Hunt Trophy than it does for Cincinnati. Since Cincinnati wants to win the game to get the Super Bowl,
right.
Chiefs want to win the Lamar Hunt Trophy because it's it's named after the founder and the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it means much more to the organization, the family, if the Chiefs win this game and stamp their ticket to the Super Bowl.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Steve, before we get out of here, looking sharp, looking dapper as yours truly always is. Who you want to give a shout out to your sponsors today, my brother?
Give a shout out to my good friends over at Dealers on Arosa. Remember, go check them out. Business suit needs, date night needs, as far as your clothing goes, go check them out. They locked me in with this Perry Ellis suit today, so I appreciate them. My guy Jeff over at Dealers on Arosa.
All right, and of course, I want to thank Todd White and Todd's Clothier and Taylor Suits for dressing me, getting me the championship game swagger for today. Also want to send special thanks out to our sponsors, Gates Barbecue. 5 locations around Kansas City. Make sure you go get your food. Game's about to start. but you can always have Gates for the second game as well, and get you fed. And then, of course, when the Chiefs win, make sure you stock up on Gates Barbecue on Super Bowl Sunday. And I also want to give a shout out to Lincoln University as well, my alma mater, located down in Jefferson City, Missouri. Make sure that you follow them. And if you're interested in attending the HBCU, they're looking for law enforcement officers down there as well. Go to lincolnu.edu. And congratulations once again to Dr. John Mosley, who has been selected to become the permanent president or the new president of Lincoln University. So, for Steve Walls, I'm Darren Smith. Make sure you follow Steve Walls on the social media platforms at Steve Walls KC. You can follow me on social media at Darren Smith WHB. We'll be back. Now, Steve, we might come back even at the half or whatever to give our thoughts on the first half of the championship game. But we will be back following the game on our respective platforms with the Chiefs post-game celebration, Zoom, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, and go Chiefs. We'll see you after the game.